They had waited years for this. After deployments, distance, and sleepless nights filled with worry, Jake and Emma finally had a place they could call home. A quiet neighborhood with trimmed lawns, kids riding bikes, and the kind of peace Jake had forgotten existed. He was done with conflict, done with chaos. For the first time in his adult life, he wanted to be a husband, not a soldier. Emma loved mornings on the porch, coffee mug in hand, soft music playing from her phone, the sound of birds filling the air. She'd say things like, "This is what happiness feels like," and Jake would smile, pretending not to notice how much he needed to hear that too. They had plans, weekend barbecues, date nights, maybe even a dog. Life finally felt normal. Then one Thursday afternoon, while Jake was out running errands, two men walked up their driveway. They wore navy blue shirts with badges clipped to their belts. Their car had flashing amber lights. One knocked sharply on the door while the other scanned the porch. Emma opened it halfway, polite as always. "Ma'am, HOA inspection," the taller one said. "We've had complaints about safety violations in your area. Just need to check your backyard." Emma blinked. "I didn't hear anything from the HOA," she said. "That's why we're here," the shorter man replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Something about him felt off. The way he looked around, like he was making sure no one was watching. Emma hesitated. "Do you have identification?" The taller one flashed a laminated card so quickly she barely saw it. "We're on a tight schedule, ma'am. Just a minute of your time." Her heart started to race. The neighborhood was usually friendly, but this felt wrong. Still, she didn't want to seem rude. She stepped outside, keeping the door half open. "You can check from here," she said, pointing toward the yard. That's when she noticed their car. Unmarked, no logo, no number plate on the front. Her gut twisted. Something wasn't right. "Actually," she said slowly, "I think I'll call my husband first." The tall man's jaw tightened. "No need for that, ma'am. We'll be quick." Before she could answer, he stepped closer, too close. His tone changed. The fake smile disappeared. "Let's do her job." Emma froze. She tried to close the door, but the man's hand shot out, pressing against it. "Ma'am, don't make this hard." Her voice trembled. "Leave. Now." But they didn't. In that single moment, that hesitation, was all it took for their peaceful life to shatter. Miles away, Jake was driving home with groceries, humming to an old country song, unaware that the calm life he'd built was about to end with a single knock on the door. Emma's heart was racing. The air between her and the two strangers felt heavy, charged with something dark. She tried to push the door shut again, but the taller man leaned in harder this time. The frame groaned under the pressure. "I said, let us in." His voice wasn't polite anymore. It was a command. Emma's hand fumbled for her phone. She managed to grab it off the table near the door, but before she could dial, the shorter man snatched it out of her grip. "Relax," he sneered. "We're just doing our job." Her pulse hammered in her ears. Every instinct told her to run, but she didn't want to turn her back on them. "You're not from the HOA," she said, her voice barely steady. "Get off my property." That's when the taller one shoved her shoulder. Not hard enough to throw her down, but enough to make her stumble. "Watch your tone, lady," he muttered. Emma's fear flipped to anger. "I said leave," she shouted, pushing him back with both hands. The shorter man laughed, a cold, ugly laugh. "You got spirit," he said, stepping closer. She darted backward, toward the porch railing, trying to create distance. "My husband's coming home any minute. You need to go. Now." That made them pause. For a split second, their expressions shifted from arrogance to unease. "Your husband?" the tall one asked. "He's in the Navy," she said quickly, her voice rising. "He'll be here any second." The men looked at each other. The shorter one muttered, "Let's bounce, man." But before they left, he leaned close to Emma and hissed, "Tell your Navy boy to mind his own business." Then he threw her phone down on the porch, screen cracking on impact. They turned and bolted toward their car. Emma stood frozen for a few seconds before her knees gave out. She sank onto the steps, breathing hard, tears stinging her eyes. Her shoulder throbbed where she'd been shoved. She could still smell the cologne one of them wore, still hear the sound of the door hitting the frame. A neighbor peeked out from across the street, but didn't come over. The car screeched off down the road, tires whining as it disappeared around the corner. For a long moment, There was only silence, the kind that rings in your ears after chaos. Then, the rumble of Jake's truck turning onto the street. He saw it before he even parked. The cracked phone on the porch, the dented doorframe, the shattered flower pots on the ground. And Emma, sitting there, shaking, her face pale and eyes wet. He jumped out before the engine stopped. Emma. She looked up at him, trying to speak, but no words came out. Just a whisper. They said they were cops. Jake's stomach dropped. His military instincts kicked in immediately. The calmness on his face wasn't peace. It was the silence before a storm. He looked around once, scanning the street, memorizing every car, every face behind a window. Then he knelt beside her and said quietly, "They made a mistake coming here." Jake didn't raise his voice. He didn't storm off or throw things. That wasn't his way. Years of training had drilled calm into his blood, the kind of calm that came before precise action. He helped Emma inside, sat her down, and checked her shoulder. She winced, but she was okay. Physically, at least. Emotionally, she was shaking. He could see it in her eyes. Fear, confusion, guilt. She kept saying, "I should have closed the door sooner." He took her hand and said quietly, "None of this is your fault." Then he stood up, and the soldier in him woke up. He walked into the garage, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small black box. Inside was his old military phone, the one he hadn't touched in months. He powered it on, scrolled through contacts, and called someone saved under a single letter, R. When the voice answered, Jake didn't waste time. "I need a favor," he said. Two men posing as HOA cops. Uniforms, fake badges, unmarked sedan. "I need their faces, plates, everything." The voice on the other end hesitated. "You're out, Jake. You sure you want to get involved?" Jake's eyes hardened. "They came to my home. They touched my wife. I'm involved." Within hours, he had everything. His contact had pulled footage from a neighbor's doorbell cam and traffic cameras around the block. Clear shots of both men, faces, car model, partial plate. He sent it all to the local police with a detailed report. But he didn't stop there. Jake spent the rest of the night digging. Online records, security databases, social media. Old instincts kicked in. Every click, every search narrowed the hunt. By morning, he knew who they were. Small-time scammers, pretending to be authority figures to intimidate homeowners and steal valuables. A pattern across multiple suburbs, and now they'd picked the wrong house. The next afternoon, Jake parked near a strip mall where the suspects were known to hang around. He waited quietly in his truck, eyes scanning the lot. Hours passed. Then he saw them. Same faces, same smug attitude, laughing like nothing had happened. He didn't charge at them. He didn't make a scene. He stepped out, calm, steady, walking with the confidence of someone who'd stared down far worse. The shorter man noticed him first. His grin faded. "Hey, that's..." Jake cut him off with a look that made the rest of the sentence die in his throat. He spoke softly, but with a weight that filled the air. "You think fake badges make you untouchable? You picked the wrong house." One of them tried to talk, stammering excuses, but Jake raised a hand. "Don't bother. The police are already on their way." He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only they could hear. "Next time you pretend to be someone you're not, remember this. Real men don't need badges to protect what matters." And then, as two squad cars pulled into the lot, Jake turned and walked away. The next morning, the whole neighborhood was talking. Police cars had lined the street the night before. The two fake officers were in custody, their scam operation exposed. It turned out they'd been hitting neighborhoods across the county, pretending to be HOA inspectors or security officers to intimidate homeowners, then stealing cash, jewelry, or personal info. But this time, they picked the wrong address. Jake didn't want credit. He never did. When the detectives came to thank him for the information, he just nodded and said, "Just doing what anyone would have done." But everyone in that neighborhood knew the truth. Not everyone would have done what Jake did. Most people would have looked away, waited for justice to come on its own. Jake made sure it came faster. Emma spent the next few days healing, not just from the bruise on her shoulder, but from the fear that had settled deep inside her. For the first time since that day, she sat on the porch again, coffee in hand. But now, when she looked down the street, she didn't see the same peaceful neighborhood. She saw how fragile peace could be, how quickly it could be stolen. Jake joined her, sitting beside her in silence. The morning breeze moved through the trees, carrying the faint sound of laughter from kids playing down the street. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Then Emma said softly, "I thought you wanted a quiet life." Jake smiled faintly. Quiet doesn't mean weak. She looked at him, really looked, and saw the man behind the calm eyes, the one who'd spent years protecting strangers, now protecting her. "You scared them," she said. He shrugged. "They scared themselves." Days passed. The HOA sent out real officers this time. Verified IDs, polite apologies to every resident. Local news even covered the story. Fake HOA inspectors caught in suburban sting. Homeowners' quick action helped police break ring. The reporter asked for Jake's comment, but he declined. He didn't need fame. He just wanted life to go back to normal. But normal had changed. Jake became the kind of quiet legend neighborhoods whisper about. The Navy guy who caught the fakes. People waved more now. They felt safer knowing he lived there. And for Jake, that was enough. One evening, as the sun dipped low and golden light spilled across the porch, Emma said something that stuck with him. "You didn't just protect me," she whispered. "You reminded me what real strength looks like." Jake reached for her hand, smiled, and said, "Real strength isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when not to." And as they sat there, the porch light flickering, the sky deepening into twilight, peace finally returned. Not the fragile kind that breaks when a world knocks too hard, but the kind you earn, protect, and never take for granted again.